Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to add a large hole bail to Kumihimo. Now, there's a couple of different tips and tricks that I'm going to walk through and kind of show you a little bit of our process when we're testing stuff. So let me start by first showing you the bail that we're going to use today. Now this is from TierraCast. This is the Finishing Touches collection, and this really pretty rope bail has a really big, large hole. Now this hole is going to be about 7 millimeters, 7 to 8 millimeters, I'd say. So you can slip this over some cord. But if you're working with a cord, for example, like this one here, and you can just see I've snuck it in, this is my Kumihimo braid, it's much thinner than that. So we're going to talk about what cord end to use and kind of how you can adjust some of that sizing here. Now, speaking of the cord ends, let me draw your attention up here. Now this is a beaded Kumihimo I did. Now for this, I used the size 18 Eslon, the gray, and then under here, I sort of built up because the braid is so small, but I wanted a nice sleek look there against those seed beads. And then I just added a little toggle clasp. So again, I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit of how that comes together. This is more sort of a traditional closure with that, but we do have that in a couple different styles here. And of course we have the gold, the copper, the silver, and the brass ox that I'm using for or the brass oxide. We sort of shorten it to brass ox here at Beadaholique. So what we can do is I'm going to show you how to do that on this braid over here. And let me kind of bring you up here and show you the other colors. And of course, again, we have that copper, that gold, and that silver. So you can choose which one you like, and you'll get 2 bails and 2 cord ends. So you can actually use a couple of bails or make a couple of different projects with that. So I'm going to use a toggle clasp. I have my little charm that I'm going to attach with some jump rings. These are 5 millimeter 20 gauge jump rings, and that'll work just fine for my project here. Those are in the antique brass as well. And so I have my Kumihimo here, and you can see that I've actually already finished one side. And before I get to that, let me show you what else I'm using today. Now this is how it comes. This is the Kumihimo braid, and this is a beautiful color mix, and it's that satin rat tail. This is the lilac version, and you can see that you get 4 different colors here. And as you can see, this is the Chino version, which is that blue and brown and teal and white. So that's what I used here, but when you get it, it comes like this. So you get a 1 millimeter diameter and you get 3 yards of each of the cords. So that's how we're gonna create that little braid. And there's gonna be a full tutorial to walk you through exactly how to set up your disc for this style. But in this video, I'm just really gonna try to walk you through that bail making process. All right, so I have some E6000, that's how we're gonna finish it off. And then I have a couple of scraps of wire. You can use a toothpick as well. I just had some little scraps hanging around, so that's going to help me when I go to do my cord ends. I have my gator weight, and I've already taken this off, and I'll show you why in a second. I have a couple of chain nose pliers. I have my snips, and then you also might need a ruler, and I also have some just Scotch tape here. All right, so let me bring your attention back to my Kumihimo disc here. Now, of course, I've done the 3 up and 1 down because I wanted to see where I was going to be finished there. So let me just kind of tighten that up. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish that last little warp there. All right. So now, when you flip to the other side, you're going to see that I have my braid happening here. Now, the reason I've taken my gator weight off of my big knot here at the bottom and gone ahead and added my cord end is because I want to make sure that this large hole bail is going to fit over it. So if you're testing something out, this is how I recommend you do that. So you can see that I've already sort of taped and snipped off my braid, and I've actually snipped off about 3/4 of an inch. So when you're working with something like this, I would always err on the side of safety and do a little bit extra braiding than you think you're going to need. When you are talking about sizing, let me kind of bring this in here. If you're looking at my little toggle clasp that I know I'm going to use and the cord ends, you know, you're really looking at a long clasp. So you can kind of get a little bit of a gauge of how that's going to work. And if you kind of bring in my ruler here, that's almost 2 inches. So when you're really looking at like, oh, well, I wanted a 6-inch bracelet and I have, you know, 6 or 7 inches of braiding, that's more than enough. And like I said, you want to do maybe a little bit extra just to make sure it's going to get there. And also the satin rat tail can stretch ever so slightly, just a little bit. So it has a little bit of give to it. And that's really only true for the satin rat tail. You're not going to get that so much with the size 18, the Eslon. You might get a little bit, but it's a much tighter braid because it's a really much thinner cord. Okay, So all that to say, now what we're going to do is we're going to take off our braid from our disc and just sort of pop those little guys out there. And I'm just going to kind of hold it and bring the braid all the way through. All right, so now the first thing I'm going to do is just come and just snip off all those cords. There we go. Let me kind of get that out of the way there. All right, so you can make a little knot if you like. There we go, and just kind of bring those all together. All right, cool. That'll work. We're going to cut it off anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, so now here's where some of the sizing gets interesting. So what I kind of like to do is I like to sort of set up what it's going to look like there, almost to the edge, and know that obviously I don't need to make a 9-inch bracelet. So I'm going to come in here and I'm actually going to take my piece of tape where I want to cut it, and I'm going to just wrap it around that little braid there. So just kind of wrap it. And this is probably too long of a piece of tape there, so just enough to kind of secure it. And then I'm just going to trim off all that extra tape because I don't want any extra width on this because I want it to fit into my little cord end. All right, so just kind of scooching that up. So that, yeah, so that's going to give me a good 8-inch bracelet. So this is going to be really, really nice. So again, you can see that little bit of give there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off with maybe just about 1/4 of an inch left on there. And there's a lot of cord, so it just takes a second. There we go. And now, before, and this is why we use the tape so it doesn't unravel, before I put on my other cord end, I have to slide on my bail. Now I know this is going to fit and that's going to slide around really easily, but the thing I want to test is to make sure that it's not going to fall off the other side. Now you can see from my other bail here that obviously if I wanted to use a larger cord end, the bail is the same size, so it's not going to fall off. So let's say you had a larger cord and you wanted to really nudge that on there so it's stable. This is going to be a little bit more of a free-flowing charm piece, so that's just going to sit there. Okay, now let's say I wanted to use this big cord end on this tiny braid. What you can do is you can take some of the extra cord that you'd have from this and kind of wrap it around the braid to build up that size so that it fits in there. Of course, for this one, I don't have to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach our little other end here. And I'm just going to use a little bit of E6000 here. And just kind of getting a little bit onto, there we go. Just a nice little dollop onto the end of my wire here. Make sure you close that glue back up. We don't want that to dry out. And then we're just going to stick that down into the little well and just sort of move it around, make sure it kind of gets in all the little corners and all the little crevices there. All right. And I'm just going to set that over my little piece of tape there that I had left over. That worked out nicely. All right, so now we're just going to slide this in there and just make sure that you're kind of getting in there. One thing I like to do is I kind of like to twist it around a little bit, make sure it's getting all those cords. But as you're looking at your bracelet, keep in mind you're going to want those loops to face the same way. So make sure that you just kind of rotate it however it needs to be to make sure that these loops are facing the same direction. It'll make it for a really nice, easy closure. All right, now, normally, I would let this sit because I want that to really firm up before I start playing with it. So I'm going to move on though, so hopefully that won't pop out on me. All right, so we're going to be using some jump rings here, and we can go ahead and add on our little charm. And I chose this little open design charm by TierraCast. I just thought it was really pretty and the metal matches perfectly. So we're just going to open that little jump ring, close that up, and now we have our little charm happening there on our little bail, so it's going to hang nicely. And the bails are really fun, especially if you're doing a necklace and you want to add like a little center charm. Those are always really fun too. All right, now a couple more jump rings here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to open one and slide on our toggle. and then slide on our cord end and close that up. And then moving to the other side here. Now this one I want to be really careful on because my glue isn't fully set yet. So for yours it will be. Please, please, please don't do what I'm doing. We just want to make sure it sets nice and strong. We don't want to lose our bracelets. All right, and just make sure that's a really good closure there. There we go. I'm much happier with that. All right, so now you'll have a bracelet, and again, I don't want to tug too hard on that side, but it will come together in a nice little circle there, and you'll be able to attach your toggle to each other, and you'll have a nice little bail there at the bottom. So that's one option to do this. Again, we do have these in 2 different sizes, so you could absolutely do a larger braid and kind of get the same effect by using a different, by using the same bail, a different cord end to get that sort of same effect, and it'll work because the TierraCast has designed everything to kind of work together. All right, so thank you so much for joining me. You can get all of these supplies and see even more tutorial videos by heading over to Beadaholique.com.